Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Safdar and we are back with the another tutorial of how to. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss the updates. So today we are going to see about the Angular forms. So we are going to use the stack blitz for that. So in previous lecture we have already seen how to configure the stack blitz account to start with the Angular project. So we are going to use the same trick here. So let's get started. So I would like to encourage all of you, if you face any difficulty in Angular, so you can go to the Angular documentation. The official documentation is very good and Angular is very rich in its documentation, so you will find your queries answered by the documentation itself. So quickly we have to start the topic related to the forms. So in Angular we have two forms basically. First is template driven, second is reactive forms. So quickly we are going to start the first template driven form. So template driven form, as its name suggests, that it is driven by the template. So template is nothing but the HTML code. So in template driven form we design the HTML, then we place the binding of our variables to that respective controls. And the advantage of this template driven form is it is very easy to use because it's use the HTML tags, and apart from that very less code is required for this. So we are going to just see the practical demo of it. So for that I am going to open this taglet site. So here I have already opened that stack blitz. I have already created a project, so I will provide the link of this project in the description box below, so you can use this project for your future reference. So quickly I need to create two components, for one for reactive forms, another one for template driven form. So first I am going to create a template driven form component. Yeah, it is created. Now I need to create another component for the reactive form. So now our two components are ready. So first we need to place that tag on a home screen. So I'm just going to put the tag name here. So we are done. So template driven works here printed on the right pane of the this window. So our template driven component now displayed uh, on the screen right now. So we need to code the template form in this component. So we are going to quickly see how we can design the template driven form. So let's go to the template component that we have created. Here is the HTML of that component. So I need to place one div here. So we are just going to put one simple form, nothing fancy. I'm going to put name, and we are going to put one button. So our template is ready now. So you can see that our template is working. So we are just going to put a simple form here. There is a name, so user can input the name, and there is submit button. So our HTML is ready. Now we need to bind that HTML to the ts file variables. So we can do this by assigning some values to this text box. So I am putting a variable, declaring a variable here, which will be of string type. Now we need to bind that variable to the name text box. So binding can be done using two-way binding. So I'm using ng model directive, which is used to bind the values. So it is a now the my name is binded to the text box. Now suppose if I enter something value, some value in this name text box, it will be directly assigned to the my name using this ng model directive, because it is a two-way binding directive. So any changes in a variable can affect on the text box, and any changes on the text box will be affected on the name. So by this we can bind the template driven form. Other thing is that on submit of button I need to log some values into the console. So for that we need to define some handler here. So I am going to put a click handler here on submit. So this handler needs to be present in the TS file. Okay, so now we are done with the initial template building and the binding to the variables in our TS files. So now if I press something here and click the submit, it will be uh, log to the console. Now you can use some of the APIs to send this data to the external API to be saved into the database, but we are not covering that into this lecture. So our initial building was done. So we have created a template, HTML template. Now we have bind that template to our variables. Now the variables can hold the values of that template uh, variables. So now we need to add some validation. Suppose there should be a required validation here, because if you see there is a blank value here, if I refresh here and press the submit, it will log the undefined. So that should not be passed to the some external API, that we need to take care. So in order to apply the validation to this template driven form, we need to add HTML tags, because it is everything is driven by the HTML in template driven form. So I am going to put the required attribute here. We need to define some template variable here, and this disabled attribute needs to be placed here. Not. So you can see that it is required, it is appearing as a red border. So we have added some code here in style.css. Yeah, so we are using the ng invalid class. So because ng invalid is a angular class given to some invalid invalid inputs. So basically we are using that class to decorate our text box. So right now there is no value in a text box, so submit button is disabled. So that's how we can actually prevent the undefined or blank value to be sent to the server. So I'm putting some value here, I'm putting submit. So you can see there is no way to enter the undefined value uh, to the database or to the console log. So we are done with the template driven form. So this is how a template driven form work, the basic idea of template driven form. Now we are going to use the reactive forms here. So just I need to put this selector on to the home screen, app.html. So you can see reactive form works printed here. So we are done with the initial rendering of the reactive forms component. Now we need to put some reactive code. So as you seen that in template driven form we had defined the HTML first, but in reactive form we need to define the structure of our form into the TS file. So I'm going to define the structure. So we need one form group, because it is a good practice to define a form group. Then the form group contain the form controls. So I'm going to define my form group should be new form group. Now this form group will contain the form control. So my name is actually a form control. So currently I'm not putting any validations or default value here. We just need to bind this form group on the HTML. So just go to the HTML site, define the form tag. Now we need to bind that form group to this form tag. So for that I'm going to use a directive called form group. Need to pass this our form group name which we have created in TS file. So basically the error shown to us that form group is not known to this form property. For that we need to import the reactive form module into our app.module ts. So currently we have forms module, but we need a new module, reactive forms module here. Yep. So we are done. We have imported the reactive forms. Now actually there is no warning on the reactive forms. For that we need a reactive form to be imported into our app.html file, sorry, app.ts file, app.module.ts file. Now I need to place one control. So I am going to just place a name. We are designing the same form as we have designed in template driven form, and then we need to bind the button. So this code is same, but the binding is totally different. So you can see here we have a submit button here, click handler, needs to be defined in the ts file of the reactive form. Now I need to log the console. So if you want to print the my name on the console, you need to use this syntax. You need to call the first the group, then in group we need to call the controls, and then the control name. So such as my name or the control name dot value. So this will print the respective value in the console. So still we haven't bind any form control name with this input, so we are going to use one directive called form control name. So this directive used to bind the form control to the respective element. So our name is my name, so we are going to put my name here and save. So our initial binding works here. So suppose I enter here, so it will be printed here. But suppose if we want to disable, if there is no value in this, you want to disable this, so we can use this so suppose if you want to disable this submit button in the reactive forms, so we can use the form group name dot invalid property, because this invalid properties belong to the form group. So whenever there is a form is invalid, we will disable the submit button, because but currently it is not disabled because the form is valid now. To make this invalid, we need some custom validation, some validation to be placed on this form group. So we are going to just place some validations here. So first will be the default value, then we need to pass the validators. So So it is showing that it is required. So the entire form is actually showing in the red. If we place something, you can see submit is enabled. So this required validators or required is belong to the reactive forms. So suppose if you need some more validations, so you can use validator.compose. So compose will contain the array of the validations such like validator dot required. So it will work as same. Suppose if you need some validation to be placed such like if suppose you want some max value validation here, so you can provide the maximum value should be like this, but it is not applicable here because we are using this string here, but it can work. So as you can see that we have provided 99 here, but we have provided it 999, so it is invalid and submit button is disabled. So this is how you can apply the multiple validations using the reactive forms. Apart from that, you also bind the custom validations here. So let's go to the slide. As you know how we can configure the template and reactive forms. So the disadvantages of the template driven form is that it makes a HTML very heavy. So that's why the maintainability is not good in the template driven form, and limited set of validations. So the extensibility also not there in the template driven form. As far as if you consider the reactive forms in your project, so reactive forms are well maintained and extensible, so it can adopt the custom validations when you go further in your project. So that is the main key of this reactive forms. So yeah, so just go to the practical demonstration. So we have seen how we can place the validations here. So I'm just going to remove that max validator here. So custom validation is one of the key point of this reactive form. So we can bind the custom validation here using the bind syntax. So like I have declare, I'm just going to declare some function, custom function here. So you can provide your code here to make this invalid or valid this control. It will accept the form. I'm just going to put a one syntax, not really coding the custom binder here. So you can bind so this way you can bind your custom validations here. So suppose if you want to invalid that control, if you put some value here, so you can directly read values from here. Some custom error. So this is how you can return some custom error from this validation control. So suppose I just removed here that required, so that required we will going to use from our custom validation. So if there is no value using this custom validator, we are setting this form invalid using our custom validator. So you can see there is no required attribute, but we have bind this validation to our custom validator. Now custom validator will check if there is no value in the form control, so it will send an error, but we are not using this custom error displayed on the UI side. We are just using the state of the form to set this red border. So this is how you can write your custom validators as well. So I believe you get the idea how to write the custom validator, how to write the template driven forms, and how to write the reactive forms. Now you know the advantage of the reactive form, so I would like to encourage you to use the reactive form in your future project to handle this type of custom behavior. Thank you.